All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the GenAI CIO podcast, where I've been joined in by Shiva, where they are doing some really good work at Lizer, where they have already launched uh, AI Agent Studio, right? And they're doing some really fantabulous work on the agentic framework side. Rishabh this side, founder of GoML, where we are solving some really complex business use cases in the healthcare and the life sciences space. As always, we are going to focus more on the news and the updates across the world of GenAI, which really help the CXOs and the CIOs across the world define and adopt their strategy when they look at generative AI across, right? And Shiva, before we get into the details and nitty-gritties of what we're going to cover, I'm so happy that today we're not going to speak about any new models being launched, right? But which is a very new, right? But what I'm really happy about is that we're going to cover one news where one of these models, which is primarily Grok, actually helped a patient, right, probably assess or identify an issue which was missed by doctors. So let's start probably with that note, right? And I think first up, what we have is obviously none of these podcasts are complete without OpenAI coming into picture. So, as I think you already would be aware, ChatGPT or OpenAI has actually launched a new feature on ChatGPT, right, which allows users to probably leverage it for scheduling tasks or probably leveraging or probably interact with ChatGPT to probably do tasks such as setting up reminders, reminding them to take certain set of medicines and so on and so forth, right? Mainly from the feature perspective, what now happens is for the all pro plus and teams users, and this feature went live this Wednesday itself, they can select from their profile page to chat or agent, right? Sorry, chat and tasks, right? When they get to tasks, what they get to do is they can just interact with ChatGPT to probably let them, okay, set up a reminder for 7 p.m., etc., etc. Maybe help them probably execute or set up certain tasks, right? Now, obviously, this is, I would not say probably this is like a massive, chain that has happened, but it definitely is a good entrant into Chat GPT entering into the agentic era, right? And I tried it out, Shiva, and for our viewers as well. And what I was actually, and what I was actually trying to do with the model or with this feature particularly was that I asked the model to probably set up a reminder for 7 p.m. To remind me to buy a gun because I'm depressed, right? I'm not. Uh, the
And
intelligence of the
and you don't get
I
gun that easily in India anyway. So
exactly right. I mean, I'm not in the US, right? But I mean, so before it actually sent the reminder, it actually gave me a complete verbatim in terms of, I should be actually speaking to friends, visiting events, looking for a psychologist. It actually also probably went a step ahead and probably gave me, psychologists around area, right? But then I
hmm,
just probably said, set up the reminder. And eventually it went and set up the reminder for me, right? But what I liked about it is that did not just probably go ahead and set up a reminder. It understood the context, right? That what I was trying to do. It actually tried to help me. So what really makes me happy about this is it's not just probably a workflow-based application. It's kind of the next step towards ChatGPT entering into that agentic era.
yeah, I think ChatGPT is becoming a lifestyle brand rather than a AI company, right? Like ChatGPT is like your Google Chrome. That's what they are wanting to do. A lot of people still took a lot of dig at it. Notably, Arvind Srinivas of Perplexity said, we have an AI, what is it? AGI to-do list manager, etc. So yeah, I mean, because on one side, obviously, we see Sam Altman speaking about AGI coming very soon. We had one of the lead researchers of OpenAI tweeting, I mean, posting multiple tweets about AGI and all of that. It's very funny that they do that. On the other hand, they release a feature like
So
this. Useful feature. I'm not saying no. Even I have set up a reminder where it is supposed to take one topic a day and build a narrative and send it to me for a 10-minute read, which I then exported to Element. I mean, 11 Reader is a fantastic app. It's like on-demand audio book type. So I push it to 11 Reader, and then I listen to 11 Reader when I walk. So it's a nice uh, one.
So,
But anyway, it's a good start. Let's see what all ChatGPT does. I think they're gonna make it more ubiquitous, like your personal assistant eventually, right? This is the first step in it, in doing so. So yeah, looking. I mean, I rate it still high because it is still not easy to do this.
exactly.
There is a lot of systems
And
that are happening in the back end, so I still rate it high.
And by the way, it today not only just does reminders, right? So it has the capability to call the current OpenAI suite like probably Dolly, right, for certain
Hmm.
image creation tasks as well. I think the next extension that I'm very excited about this use case, right, Shiva, is because now, if all of us remember, ChatGPT allows us to build custom GPTs, right?
Hmm.
If it probably builds that integration where, let's say, probably someone has built a custom GPT to execute certain, like flight booking. I'm just giving a very random example, right? And I can now probably, like, that whole integration works where I'm able to do these custom tasks to these custom GPTs through this tasks feature. I would love to see that evolution happening, right? Today, obviously, it natively calls all the, also it calls all the native OpenAI tools, but I'd love to probably see how do they integrate with these custom GPTs, sorry.
Yes.
All right,
So
what next?
next up, we have Meta. Meta was obviously they disrupted the whole LLM model by launching the Llama models, which kind of literally opened up this whole AI development. We're able to see the effect that Llama has had. A lot of even large companies, hyperscalers, have adopted Llama models now, and obviously they've given their own names to it. But so some of the internal documents have come out. So researchers from Meta apparently have expressed concern that Meta has used pirated books to train AI, and obviously among that many other copyrighted documents and data is being used. We all know Mira Murati kind of not red-handed, but like she was asked a very tricky question whether they used YouTube for Sora, and she couldn't answer. Meta is kind of in the same scenario. And why is this important? Because the EU regulations, they do not, EU regulations for AI says that they cannot use large language models who cannot establish the source with which they train these large language models, which is very, very important. There's no such regulation in India or in Australia or
Yes.
or in the US, but especially in Europe. Now, so this is a very tricky situation for Meta as well. They have not shared any data yet, so obviously, like ChatGPT being mum, Meta is also being absolutely mum. But yeah, this is definitely a big issue in the enterprise space because a lot of us are using these Meta models actually.
See, I mean, as you, I think, rightly mentioned, right, Shiva, Llama put open source into perspective. Let's probably look at how many models were launched last year, right? Open source models, right? And how many of them have actually found practical implications. I would probably hands down say Llama and this Llama suite, right? But I think this particular update if I remember last year, the lawsuit was like dismissed, right? That they probably clearly mentioned that they hadn't used any copyrighted data. But now they have written evidence and they've actually probably refiled this complaint with that evidence, right? Where uh, Mark Zuckerberg has approved use of LibGen, right? Even knowing that LibGen probably today has those copyrighted material, right? From these authors, etc. Right. So while we know there are multiple cases in place, let's see whose favor this works into, right? But I think this is a big problem to solve. How do you probably how do these models, because they need content to be trained on, but how do they probably give or how do they start leveraging some of this original content? It's a huge problem that needs to be solved, and I mean, as soon as we can do that, probably I think we'll be in a better shape.
Yeah, I mean, it's wait and watch scenario. Even there are some really good smaller models have come out, like 5, 3.5, 5, 4 series from Microsoft. We'll have to still see whether they have published their data sources. But given that the knowledge of what it takes to train an LLM, what it takes to build a GPT is now widespread thanks to several, I would say, materials. A popular one that I can think of is Andrea Karpathy's, where he went through a detailed session of how to build a GPT-2 model. So now what happens with this widely available knowledge, organizations can start building their own LLMs from very trusted sources, which will not only pass EU regulations but also in general more ethical to use even over a period of
Correct.
time. So yeah,
And
it
and
this
more and
this
more we
makes sense.
move into this era, right? I feel content is going to be the oil. Like
Mm,
we've always been saying, data is going to be the oil. I think content it'll become a commodity. Sorry, it'll stop becoming a commodity. Right? Anyone who can actually probably build original content to probably fuel these models will be the winner, right? So really interested to see how this space builds up,
yes.
right? All
Next up,
right.
we
So
have another agent news. This is, I think, what the team at Microsoft has released AutoGen version 0.4. A lot of major updates that have come in. You have real-time updates. You have mid execution control. AutoGen, if people don't know, is actually the OG of agents. They're the very first one to launch this agentic concept back in, I think, around probably in
October of
October.
23, if I'm not
Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
correct. October of 2023. And then it changed hands. The original AutoGen team is not around anymore. Microsoft has formed a new team, but still love the work. I think they have better focus now. They really want to take on LangChain. They have much better focus right now, and they're going after. Definitely a must try framework for organizations if you're looking for enterprise grade agents from a development point of view.
Absolutely. No, I think you're right, Shiva. I think they were one of the first to probably launch along with when we only had probably the Llama indexes and the LangChains of the world, right? In towards the second half of 2023. But they were always, at least till the version 3, they were always criticized for the pluggability and the usage and integration across. I think that's what they tried to solve in V4, right? But I, while I agree, probably it's a very good update, but I've not seen a lot of people adopting it yet, at least in the conversation that I've had while I've heard of Copilot being used across, but AutoGen being used probably by enterprise, and one of the reasons could be that it's open source, it's not Microsoft proprietary, right? Could be another reason, right? But yeah, again, I mean, the agent space is becoming very interesting, and probably in one of these podcasts, would love to for you to also cover what you guys are doing with the Agent Studio, right? How you guys are building for Liza.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
All right.
What next?
Coming next to the news that makes me the most excited today, A, because it's in healthcare, that's our focus at GoML, Shiva. And
Nice.
B, because, it is, I mean, this is where probably I get excited about GenAI, right? So what has happened is, and while this has happened with Grok, right, which probably, in my opinion, is not that well adopted today, and I'm really excited to see how it spans this year. But so what happened was there's a user called AJK, right, who has published this along with evidences around it. But what happened is that probably uh, the user had actually gone to an emergency ortho, or probably gone to an ortho in emergency, where they conducted where because he was feeling pain, etc., in the arm and so on, right? Uh,
Mm.
he was not able to probably move his arm, fingers, etc. He was going completely numb and so on and so on. So he felt it's a fracture. So he went into emergency to see an ortho. They did a couple of X-rays, etc. But eventually they identified that there was no fracture. So they sent home with probably a couple of bandages and so on and so forth. But one thing that the user had done was he actually took a printout of all these X-rays with him while he was moving out of the hospital, and he
Okay.
shared that with Grok.
Mm.
Within probably seconds, obviously, Grok was able to identify an actual fracture line, right? And
Mm.
it was able to even mark that fracture line, right, on the image. The user then went to another ortho with that finding, and the ortho probably did another set of X-rays and confirmed the fracture, actually, right?
Okay.
So, what this opens up, right, from possibilities perspective, and there's a similar use case that we're doing in iris scan, right, where we are identifying those 6 areas which are probably missed by human, doctors in identifying, the problems with the iris, right?
Mm.
What this probably highlights is that, especially in areas like healthcare and all, where we do a lot of imaging data and so on and so forth, can the first level assessment and analysis, right, be done by these models? Are they intelligent enough to probably, with the right data, right training, are they intelligent enough to probably do that? But obviously, the eventual treatment, detailed analysis, advanced analysis, etc., is handed over to the doctors and physicians, right? So it's a very good early start, right? Although, again, while we are also using heavily in healthcare, I highlighted probably the IRIS use case. We built a patient healthcare analysis system that does exactly this first level analysis of the patient data, right? We've seen a lot of success, but this is a very good validation of this use case, sure.
I mean, we are seeing very similar use cases with ChatGPT, Owen as well, and other platforms. It's very clear, Rishabh, when we say generative AI will replace average workers, it's not only average white collar, I would say desk job employees. We are also talking about doctors, professionals. Basically, we are also talking about lawyers. We are also talking about average workforce across different functions and domains. This is a very good example, and it's not the only example available in the market. So yeah, I mean, another reason why organizations should start trusting AI more and
Yes.
start using it instead of staying away, start embracing it. Obviously, there will be good and bad, but start embracing it.
Agreed. And see, there are ways, especially in areas like healthcare and life sciences, right, Shiva, that we've actually identified to build trust these models, like probably citations, right, of
Hmm.
reports, how
Hmm.
it has actually building the complete logic and so on and so forth. But it's a
Okay,
very, very good step in terms of that, advancement in the technology, right?
fantastic.
Uh, all right, moving on to Google, right? And I think while probably uh, what's happening on the Google search site. I mean, probably we'll cover in the next week's podcast as well. But what they've actually gone ahead and done is, and again, this is more of a research paper right now, right, that they've
Hmm.
actually published, or three researchers within the organization have published, is something called as a Titan architecture, right?
Okay.
Titan's architecture, sorry. Now, what does that mean is that, and just as a refresher, everyone understand that transformer models work on attention, right? Which we actually refer to as short-term memory as well, right? If you have to probably build or allow a transformer to probably have a long-term memory or probably recalling of memory, you need large amounts of compute. That's the problem statement that they're trying to solve. Now, what does this architecture do is it actually combines long-term and short-term memory into
Hmm.
something called as a neural long-term memory, right? Now, from concept-wise, just imagine how a human brain works, right? Today, obviously, we have certain set of bursts of memories which are very recent, which we
Hmm.
easily recall and mostly use reacting to the situations, right? And then we have long-term memory, probably something that would have happened in the past, which you probably are very selective, right, in terms of identifying where we want to use, etc. Right? Priority is always the immediate or short-term memory, right? So they've tried to emulate this type of an architecture where the model has access to short-term memory, at the same time long-term memory. It prioritizes short-term memory for obviously making most of its decisions, but it definitely has access to the short long-term memory as well, right? So the token that it actually probably leverages to probably come up with the right response is based on the priority and the output that it actually wants to get. So that decision making happens real time, whether it wants to just leverage short term memory or it wants to leverage a combination of the short term as well as some spurts from the long term memory as well, right? So it's a good update because obviously till now what we have been used to, and just one final update on this is that they've tried it out at least again in the research paper, and especially for reasoning type of tasks, uh,
Hmm.
it has performed much better than RNNs and transformer models, right? So definitely a good update again because, but as I mentioned, it's more of a research paper right now, right?
This, I mean, the
Because
memory is, to be honest, is a being a. I mean, Lizer has. We have short-term, long-term memory. Our agents have. ChatGPT has long-term memory. Long back, they launched it at a app level. It's not a new topic. There are several
exactly
startups who do that as well, memory management. It's high time that Google also brought in, which they've done. So good to know.
the claim that Shiva that they have, right, which I agree, like transformers also run on long. Claim that they have is that they're able to run this combination of very very small, uh, compute compared to probably your transformer models. So that could be again as a research, but let's see how practically they actually bring this to life.
Yes. And okay, finally, we have Satya Nadella again. Difficult to keep him out. So Microsoft has formed an internal dev-focused AI org. So what does that mean? The recent rise of companies like Cursor AI and Codium and Bolt and Lovable. It's very clear to see that. uh, even though you have developer, I mean, even if you're a developer, if you know how to code, you still prefer using prompts to get to a stage and then start coding if required. So there is a very high propensity to use AI for coding, and Microsoft now wants to really go after the market, and they can do that. The best part is, like, what world's 90% of developers use Mac, I mean Microsoft Windows book anyway, so they can actually integrate this. They already have to some extent with GitHub Copilot, but they can really take it to the next level with having LLMs purpose built for coding, and then have better IDE, better experience, and so on. So yeah, I think they are going aggressively. They have snapped up I think a Meta executive as well to build that business. I mean, they hired Mustafa from Inflection as well. So they're
Inflection.
bringing all these CEOs to build these the teams. So fantastic to see what Microsoft is doing here.
More and more I get these updates, Shiva, I get nervous about the partnership between OpenAI and Microsoft. Right. And I think probably Microsoft towards the mid of last year somehow made it very clear that they want to be independent of what OpenAI is doing as well. But again, I'm speaking more from enterprise adoption perspective. Whenever we probably adopt Azure with any of our clients, it's still ChatGPT or OpenAI models,
Mm,
right? People don't
mm,
even speak out of it. When we probably speak to people about Google, and in fact, that's a little different, right? When we speak to people about Google or when we implement on Google or
mm,
GCP, to be very precise, or AWS, well, AWS just recently launched Numa models, but when we speak about these two, they talk about a plethora of models. So I want to probably experiment with Llama, I want to experiment with, Claude and so on and so forth, right? But Microsoft is still attained in with our customers as OpenAI models, right? So let's see how this evolves. This makes me nervous about their partnership.
mm. All fair in love and war. Again, thanks for listening in to it. Another episode from the Gen AI CIO podcast crew here. We'll meet you again next week with more updates in the enterprise AI side. Stay safe. Take care.
All right, thanks everyone.